Hey there, my fellow disruptors, and welcome to Day 1, the audio companion of Stop Losing on Price. Gip Erskine here, values-driven coaching, and I'm glad you're here. So before we get into anything that resembles a framework, I want to just talk to you for a few minutes. No slides, no bullet points, just a story. Because this one matters more to me than almost anything else I could share with you across these 5 days. It's the story of the moment I stopped being part of the problem. Here's what happened. It was 2012. I had just been made general manager of a 30-story high-rise office building in downtown Dallas. Now, I had spent the better part of my career on the property management side of this industry, evaluating service providers, issuing RFPs, awarding contracts, managing relationships. I'd done it hundreds of times. So when I sat down to review the existing service agreements for this building, I felt like I knew exactly what I was looking at. So I started with the janitorial contract, pulled it up, reviewed the scope, and then I looked at the rate per cleanable square foot. 5 cents. I did a double take. 5 cents per square foot. Now, maybe that number doesn't mean anything to you, so let me put it in context. It was the same rate I had been paying in the 80s, decades earlier. Now think about that. Think about what had changed since then. The cost of living, the cost of labor, minimum wage, insurance premiums, equipment and supplies, the cost of fuel, the cost of running any kind of business, all of it had gone up, in some cases dramatically over 30 years. But this number hadn't moved, not a penny. So I sat there thinking, how's that even possible? So I picked up the phone and I asked the cleaning company owner to come in. I wanted to understand the story behind the number. He came in, we sat down, and I asked him directly, like, how are you still operating at this rate? And he leaned back and explained in a way that I kind of imagined he had explained it many times before. The market had gotten more competitive. There's more providers, there's more pressure, more properties awarding contracts based almost entirely on price. Everyone had been conditioned to bid lower and lower and lower still until the rate hadn't moved in 30 years, even though everything else around it had. And he shrugged. There was like a little bit of embarrassment, but it was simply how things were. It's just how the industry worked. And I remember thinking, yeah, but does it have to be? So I pushed a little harder. I said, okay, but what does that actually mean for your operations day to day? And he paused, and then he told me the truth. Yes, we had to do more with less. We got thinner crews, less supervision. Profit margins so compressed there's not much room left for anything unexpected. No real buffer, no bandwidth, no real cushion. And something shifted in me in that moment as I realized I wasn't just looking at his problem, I was looking at a system problem. A broken model that an entire industry had quietly accepted as normal. And then the uncomfortable part hit me. I had been complicit in building that model, supporting that model, making sure everyone complied with the rules of the low bid game. But it wasn't a game. It was a trap. Every time I issued an RFP and ranked the responses by price, every time I went back to a provider and said, your number needs to come down, every time I awarded a contract to the lowest bid without asking a single question about what that number actually meant for the people doing the work, I was feeding the machine. I was keeping the trap in place. So I made the decision that day. I told him I wasn't going to negotiate him to the ground. I wanted to pay him a fair rate, not inflated, not padded, but fair. Because here's the thing I understood as a property manager that I'm not sure always gets communicated clearly. A service provider running on razor-thin margins can't show up the way I need them to show up. They can't respond at 11 o'clock at night when something goes wrong. They can't pull extra resources when a tenant situation escalates. They can't invest in their people, and their people are the ones actually in my building every single day and every night. Paying fairly wasn't just an act of generosity, it was a self-preservation strategy. It was my insurance policy against the inevitable moment when things go sideways, and they will. And I needed a responsive partner, not just an ordinary vendor. And he looked at me for a moment, a long moment after I said all that, and then he said something I've carried with me ever since. He said, who are you? No property manager thinks like that. I thought about those words many times over the years because what he was really saying wasn't just that I was different. He was telling me how deeply the low bid mindset had embedded itself in this industry. On both sides of the table, service providers had been so thoroughly conditioned to compete on price that the idea of a property manager voluntarily paying more, not out of obligation, but out of strategic thinking, genuinely surprised them. Nobody had offered them a different conversation. So they kept on having the same one over and over, year after year, bid after bid. And that's exactly what these 5 days are designed to disrupt. Not to make you a better salesperson in the traditional sense, not to give you a script or a hack or a closing technique or a way to overcome price objections, but to show you that the game you've been playing, the one where price has always been the final word, has rules that were never written in your favor. And that you have far more power to change that conversation than you may have given yourself credit for. So here's what I want you to sit with today. Think about the last time you lost a piece of business to a lower bid. Or think about the last time you won but had to cut your price to do it. Ask yourself honestly, was the conversation ever really about value, or did it go straight to price? Did anyone on the other side of the table ever ask you what made you different in a way that felt like they genuinely valued that differentiator? Or did they hand you a spreadsheet and tell you your number needed to come down? If the answer is the latter, then you're not failing at sales. You're just playing a game that was designed to keep you exactly where you are. And the first step toward changing that is simply this: recognizing that the game exists and the game is the trap. This is your chance to escape from it. Okay, that's day one. Tomorrow we're going to talk about something that usually surprises service providers when they first hear it. The truth is, many of the most important buying decisions in this industry are already forming long before the RFP hits your inbox, long before the site walk, long before scope is discussed, and long before price enters the picture at all. And the providers that truly get this, the ones that have learned how to show up in the right way at the right time, are rarely competing from the same starting line as everyone else. I'll see you tomorrow. Ever upward.